Here, the weekly Chabura. Normally, I give it Wednesday nights in Congregation Charm Circle on Main Street. Tonight, I have the zchut to go to my father's shul, my father's Gesundheit shul, and say a lecture, a shiur on the Parsha and Kabalat HaTorah for the people, for the members of this holy shul that for many, many years I was involved with growing up, and all the people that are here. So thank you all for coming. This shiur is for Refuah Shleimer, for Hillel ben Or Ubracha, for the child that should have, and Bechor ben Pinchas. They should both have Refuah Shleima Bikarov. I want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I never actually, when I give my lectures, I never actually thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's really sad that I've been giving, 3-4 months lectures for Torah Anytime and Chazaq. And I always start off by thanking Chazaq and thanking Torah Anytime. And sadly, I've not had the opportunity. I've not actually done it, but I've not thanked HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving me the opportunity as a finite human being, to give a shiur, a human being of flesh and blood, to give a shiur, mentioning the greatness of the Torah, discussing the greatness of Torah, the infiniteness of Torah. So I want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu that I have the opportunity as a human of flesh and blood to be able to say the words and speak the words of Torah. We know that it says before the Amidah, we say the words Hashem Sefasai Tiftach Ufi Yagit Hilasecha. We say the words Hashem Sefasai Tiftach Ufi Yagit Hilasecha. The question is, what is the Lashon Sefasai, which means lips? And then it says Ufi Yagit Hilasecha, and our mouth should be able to sing the praises of Hashem. Why does it go from lips to mouth when really all it has to say is Hashem, open my mouth so I could sing your praises? What's the Lashon of Sfasai before? Obviously, if your mouth says something, your lips are also going to say it. So what is the Lashon of Sfasai? So I want to tell you something unbelievable I saw. The Lashon Sfasai, lips, come from the Lashon of Svas HaYa'ar, from the banks of a river. Sfas. What is a Svas? It's the bank of a river. What is the bank of a river or an ocean? What does it do? It separates the water from the land. A bank separates the water from the land. Therefore, we tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu also, we are human beings, we are flesh and blood. We should not be given the opportunity to thank Hashem and sing Hashem's praises. Yet we tell Hashem, open up my limitations as a human. Open up my limitations as a human, the banks that separate me from Kadosh, from holiness, and therefore my mouth could sing the praises, my mouth will be able to sing the praises to Hashem. Now this week's Parshat Emor. We're going to discuss a few things about this week's Parsha, and then we're going to go into Kabalat HaTorah. How does one prepare himself for the giving and the acceptance of Torah? How does one prepare himself for accepting the Torah? So we're going to start with the Parsha first, and then we'll go into that. The Parsha begins, Vayom Hashem el Moshe. Hashem says to Moshe, Emer el HaKohanim, speak to the Kohanim, Bnei Aaron, the children of Aaron, V'amarta Alehem, and tell them, L'nefesh, to a nefesh, to a human soul, to a human being, to a person, Lo yitameh ba'amov. He should not become tameh to any individual except for the 7 people that the Torah permits, 7 relatives, plus a mes mitzvah, someone that does not have anyone that can bury them. Besides for those 7 relatives and a mes mitzvah, a Kohen Gadol, is not allowed to become tameh. So let's discuss the concept of tumah. What is tumah? What is it about a human being that when he passes away, his soul, his body becomes tameh? Not his soul, but his body becomes tameh. What is it about a human being that the body becomes tameh? Why does he become tameh to begin with? And why is a Kohen not allowed, or Kohen Gadol, obviously, not allowed to become tameh to a tamas meis, to a dead body? So I actually asked this today to my public school students, 8th graders actually. I had a class I was giving for 8th graders, and one of the kids actually said a very nice answer, which is part of the answer. That when a human being who does mitzvot and is able to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not able to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu anymore, then that human being becomes tameh because there's no purpose for him. He becomes tameh because there's no purpose for him, for his body anymore, being that he can't do Ratzon Hashem, he can't do mitzvot, so he becomes tameh. Why does a Kohen and a Kohen Gadol become tameh for touching this? Why is there a concept of tumah? So I want to explain to you that a Kohen and a Kohen Gadol, they have to be on guard all the time to serve the people. They have to be on guard all the time to serve their people. Their job is to be ready at every moment to serve Klal Yisrael, to be the carriers and the barriers to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all the Ritzonot, all the Karbanot, everything that's needed that Klal Yisrael would need to connect them. Besides that, we can always daven to Hashem, I understand that. But they are that medium, that in between, that buffer, in a way that we can serve Hashem through the Kohen and Kohen Gadol. Therefore, when a person dies, the sign of death, the point of death, is that there is no growth, there's no potential growth. A human being that doesn't have a neshama in him anymore has no potential to grow. He has no potential to move on. There's nothing that he can do that's going to benefit society. Therefore, a Kohen becomes tameh to this, that he should be aware that he has to be the opposite of lack of potential and growth. And what should he be? He should be always understanding that he needs to be moving and doing and going and serving the people. Therefore, when there's the opposite of growth to a Kohen and Kohen Gadol, he cannot become tameh, so he should be aware of this lack of potential and growth. Now, the question that arises, an obvious question in this week's parasha, Rashi says something, and many Mefarshim, many Sfarim talk about this in detail. What is the Lashon of Emar v'Amarta? What is the Lashon of Emar v'Amarta? It's a double Lashon. It's a double Lashon of Emar to speak, v'Amarta and to say. Why does it say, Vayom Hashem el Moshe, Emar el Kohanim, B'nei Aaron, v'Amarta aleim, and speak to them. Double Lashon, Emar to speak, v'Amarta, and to speak again. So why is there a double Lashon of Emar v'Amarta? So Rashi says, Lahazir Gedolim ala Ktanim, to warn, to make sure, careful, that the elders are careful with the Ktanim. The elders should be careful with the Ktanim. On this Rashi, so many Mefarshim, so many Divrei Torah, so many different Pshatim, on what is Rashi warning us and telling us when he says Emar v'Amarta. You should say and then speak. What is the double Lashon, and why does Rashi say the Lashon of, why does Rashi say that it's Lahazir Gedolim ala Ktanim, to warn the Gedolim on the Ktanim? So, I saw an unbelievable pshat from someone by the name of Rabbi Avrohom Schlesinger. I'm not sure, I think he's still living, Baruch Hashem, I think Shlita, I think I call him Shlita. So he says an unbelievable word. I saw this many years ago. He says over that Emor is to teach a person, a parent, and an adult, that when you're teaching the younger ones, you need to do Emor, which is to tell them, via Marta, you speak not with your words, but speak with your actions, because actions speak louder than words. The first Emor is to actually tell them. Via Marta teaches you that you should actually teach them with your actions. Don't say one thing and do another thing. Because the worst thing you can do to children is to actually contradict yourself, and you tell them to do one thing and you do something else. Don't tell children to learn all day if you don't open up a sefer. You shouldn't, at least. Don't tell children to do certain things and deep down they know that you yourself don't do it yourself. So, lahazir gdolim, that you should be careful that when you say something, that you should also, the ktanim, you should act upon your words. So that's one pshat. That's one pshat I saw. Another pshat I saw is, a lot of times when people are involved with a dead person in front of them, a relative, a friend, whatever it is, but mostly relatives, what ends up happening? This person is so involved and wrapped up in dealing with the misa, in dealing with the dead person in front of him, that he's not even aware. He's not even aware that there are little children at home. There are other people involved besides him. In other words, he's so grieving this dead person, which he should grieve. He should grieve the person. But lahazir, Rashi is telling us, gedolim, not to forget about the ktanim. Don't forget about the people that are still living. A lot of times a person, it falls into a depression, he falls into a sadness, and it's understandable. It's understandable why he would fall into sadness. But never lose sight that they're still living people. They're still living people. Therefore, Rashi is telling us, lahazir, gedolim, not to forget about the ktanim. Don't forget about the young ones, because they also have feelings. They also are suffering. You might not think they're suffering like you, but they also see suffering in the home. They also understand when somebody passes away that there's problems. But we tend to sometimes not focus on the living, and we focus only on the dead. Therefore, Rashi is telling us to not forget about. I saw somebody says, don't focus so much on the Kaddish, but focus more on the Kiddush. Don't focus on the Kaddish, focus on the Kiddush, on the who's living, and not just the who passed away. So that's something very special. Now I want to tell you a story with the Mashgiach of Lakewood, Rav Matisyahu Solomon Shlita. He needs a refuah shleima himself. Very, very special human being. Big mashgiach. First he was in Gateshead. First he was in Eretz Yisrael. Then he was in Gateshead. And then he was in Lakewood for many, many years. I don't even know, 30 years I think. He was a mashgiach at least in Lakewood. Maybe 25 years in Lakewood Yeshiva. So there's a story about him that he once went to be Menachem Avel. He once went to a Yoshvo. And a 7-day, people that were sitting Shiva for 7 days. And a lot of Rosh Hashivas came to be Menachem Avel, this family. A father passed away, a very big Ben Torah, he passed away. And many Rosh Hashivas came to be Menachem Avel, this family. Most of the people in the family, there were like 10 children, most of them were married, but there were a few young ones in the home. And the youngest one was 7 or 8 years old, something like that. So when Rav Matisyahu came and all the Rosh Hashivas were talking to the married children that were sitting there, what happened? Rav Matisyahu asked them, where is the youngest one? Where is the youngest one? So they said he's 7 years old and he's playing around. He can't sit the whole time. He's sitting in the kitchen and he's playing with some of his toys. So Rav Matisyahu says, I want to speak to him. So what happens? Rav Matisyahu goes into the kitchen. All the Rosh Hashivas are sitting there. He goes into the kitchen and he goes over to the boy and tells the boy, what's your name? So he says, my name is Moshe. My name is Moshe. So he says to him, his name is Moshe. He says, what do your friends call you? What do your friends call you? So he said, they call me Mo. They call me Mo. So Rav Matisyahu said to him, do you mind if I also call you Mo? So he said, of course I don't mind if you call me Mo. Of course, call me Mo. So Rav Matisyahu Solomon tells him, he says, I want you to know that I have a phone, 2 phones. I have a phone that everybody asks me questions, and then I have a personal phone in my house that family members that want to reach me, they could reach me on this private line. I want to give you this private line, he tells them. I want to give you my private line, and what I want you to do is, I want you that whenever something bothers you, or whenever you have a question, or whenever you need something, I want you to call my private line. And he gives him the number. And he says to him also, he told the boy, that I want you to know that if anyone picks up and says, I'm busy or I'm not available, just tell them Mo is calling. Tell them that Mo is calling, and once they know Mo, I will know that you're calling me. I will stop whatever I'm doing, hopefully, Bezrat Hashem, and I will answer your phone call. I will answer your phone call. So all you have to do is say, Mo is calling, and Bezrat Hashem will answer your phone call. Because he understood that it's more important the living than the people that died, because we have to be sensitive. We have to be sensitive to those that are living. Now I'm going to tell you an unbelievable Tosfot that the Das Kanim brings down about a Kohen Gadol. Every Tosfot is unbelievable, and every Tosfot is special. But this is something mind-boggling. A mind-boggling Tosfot, Baal Das Kanim, on a pasuk in this week's parasha. It says that a Kohen Hedjit is allowed to marry an almana. A Kohen Hedjit is allowed to marry an almana. A Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry a widow. He's not allowed to marry an almana. And the pasuk tells us like this. it says, Almana, regarding a Kohen Gadol, it says, Almana, Ugrusha, V'chalala, and a Zonah, Lo Yikachu. So it says like this, why can't a Kohen Gadol marry an Almana? So the Taisus Baal Kanim says like this, he says that we're worried, the Torah is worried, that the Kohen Gadol, the holiest man, on the holiest day of Yom Kippur, at the holiest moment, that when he goes into the Kodesh HaKdashim, and he's about to mention the Shem HaMeforash, he's about to mention the Shem HaMeforash, we're worried that one time he saw a woman that was married, and what will he do? He will daven to Hashem. This is what the Tosfot says, that this lady's husband should die, and that he could take her one day, which means he'll divorce his own wife too. Listen to this. We're worried that the Kohen Gadol, on the holiest day of the year, at the holiest moment of the year, walking into the holiest place in the world, about to say the holiest Shem HaMeforash, we're worried, the Torah is worried, that the Tosfot says that he will actually daven to Hashem, that a certain woman that he noticed one time, where I don't even know, that her husband should die and that he could marry her. Who would ever think that this is what the Kohen Gadol would think? But the Torah is teaching you what it means to be careful. Wherever there is great Kedusha, there is the greatness of Tumah. Not greatness, the sadness of the power of Tumah. Wherever there's great Kedusha, we are worried of the Tumah that can also attach itself to it. I make a joke that Bnei Brak is right next to Tel Aviv. Right next to Tel Aviv. You have the Kedusha of Bnei Brak, and there are good people in Tel Aviv also, I'm sure. But what goes on sometimes, or in some places over there, wherever there's great Kedusha, there's always an opportunity in order for there to be Bechira, freedom of choice for Tumah. And I want to tell you, it's fascinating also that on Yom Kippur, by Mincha time, what is the Kriyas HaTorah by Mincha time on Yom Kippur? It's about forbidden relationships, arayut. Who thinks about arayut? You went through a whole night of Yom Kippur. You went through a whole day of Yom Kippur. You're fasting. You're hungry. You're tired. You're not in the mood for anything except for just getting close to Hashem, hopefully. And by Mincha, they read the parshas of arayut. Why? Because wherever there's greatness of Kedusha, you always have to be aware. You always have to be aware of Tumah. You always have to be aware of Tumah. So that's something that I wanted to mention. I thought it's an unbelievable vart on that. Now we're going to discuss a little bit of Kabalat HaTorah. Kabalat HaTorah. So I want to tell you, we have over 3 weeks to Shavuos. There's over 3 weeks to Shavuot. Enough time to prepare, I think. I mean, it's never enough time. A whole year you need to prepare. So I want to tell you that what is this Kabalat HaTorah, and what is this 49 days that lead to Kabalat HaTorah, and why does it start from the moment we leave Mitzrayim? Why did it start from the moment we left Mitzrayim? So I want to tell you that we know that Kabalat HaTorah, the relationship that we have, is like a chatan to a kala. On that day of Shavuot, that morning of Shavuot, we got married to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We got married through the Torah. The luchot, people say, is the ksubah, actually, for the marriage. The luchot, the written luchot, the engraved luchot was like the ksubah for our marriage to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Medrash even says that Hashem made the mountain full of flowers, like a canopy, and Hashem, we got crowns, like there were special crowns that came down when we said Na'aseh v'nishma. It was a preparation for a wedding. Now you ask people today, especially in the 5 towns, when are you getting married? In 3-4 months. 3-4 months, it's a long time. You know what most people say? Not enough time. Not enough time. We need to prepare. I don't know what people are preparing for, but I'll just tell you that you need months to prepare. So if you need months to prepare for a wedding of flesh and blood, a wedding that in one night, the wedding's over, what do you need to prepare for Kabalat HaTorah? Who knows what preparation you need for Kabalat HaTorah when we're marrying HaKadosh Baruch Hu forever, for always, not just one night. That marriage is almost renewed. Torah mechadeshes b'chol yom. It's almost renewed. The vows are renewed almost every day. Almost every day we renew our vows. V'arshtichli la'olam. When we put on our tefillin, We renew our vows to HaKadosh Baruch Hu every day. So what preparation do we need? What preparation do we need? So I want to tell you that the night of Pesach, when we left Mitzrayim, was considered our engagement party. That night that we sat and we ate the korban Pesach was our engagement party to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That was our engagement party. Because we went from serving and now serving Mitzrayim, the Egyptians, to now being one with Hashem. We are like an engaged person. And then Hashem takes us into the desert for 49 days as an engagement period to prepare for the wedding. So we have during these weeks of the Omer, we have to prepare ourselves for Kabalat HaTorah from day one already, from the first day of the counting of the Omer. The 49 days of engagement period that we need to actually to accept upon ourselves the Torah. So it's very daunting. Where do we start? Where does a human being start preparing for Kabalat HaTorah? Now, every human being understands his own situation in life. Every human being understands where he's holding in life. And therefore, every human being knows himself what he needs to do to prepare. Every human being, you don't have to announce it. You don't have to make big posters of what you need to change or what you need to work on. But every human being, if he's smart, knows exactly what he needs to improve on in order for Kabalat HaTorah to begin. That his personal Kabalat HaTorah. So I want to tell you, I saw an unbelievable Mishnah. I was sitting here on Shabbos, and there was this book over here. No, I don't need it. There was a book here that I noticed from Rav Nassim Muller from Pirkei Avot. It actually was written to Benjamin Isaacov, which is your son, right? And I said to myself, this is an amazing book. The davening here, I love the davening here. Very spiritual, beautiful, 4.5 hours. I love it. But it's a little long for me. I'm Ashkenaz. It's a little long for me. So I came late. I came at 8:30, 8:40, and I thought, wow, at least I'll come by Baruch Hu. I realized that they just started, not even Haidu. They were just beginning, They were still drinking the teas and the coffees, which is amazing. But the holiness of this shul is amazing. I'll be honest with you. The davening is so spiritual and beautiful. And I have to warm up a little bit. I'm a Kalta Litvak. I'm not a Sfardi. I'm an Ashkenaz guy. And our davenings are quick usually, and we try to get over as fast as we can. Here, people are relaxed. People want to daven. They want to buy aliyot. They want to get the brachot. Amazing. So I took out the book. I'm going to be honest. I took it and I started reading. And I came across an unbelievable thing that I said that I'm going to use for tonight's lecture on what it means to prepare for Kabalat HaTorah. I saw an unbelievable thing there. So there's a Mishnah. Perek Daled Mishnah Chaf. It says, Rabbi Masya ben Cheresh Omer. Rabbi Masya ben Cheresh says, Hava Makdim B'Shalom Kol Adam. You should be the one that always says hello before someone else. In other words, don't wait till somebody says hello to you. You meet people in the street, say hello. You see somebody at the bank, say hello. You see somebody there, don't just walk by, say hello to people. Now, he also says, don't be a rosh la'arayot, be a rosh to a lion, and not a tail to a shualim. Be a tail to a lion and not a rosh to a shu'ol, which means also be smart. You just don't randomly say hello to people, obviously. If there's somebody a woman not dressed properly, chas v'shalom, you don't have to say hello to her. Or if somebody is not, or somebody else is, you don't just say hello to everybody, but as a general rule, always say hello to somebody. I'm going to tell you an unbelievable story that on Sunday, today's Tuesday, Sunday, I'm busy telling somebody a story, which I'm going to say over, on this that I saw in the book. I'm going to tell you a story I saw in the book on this, what it means, a simple gesture as saying hello. So I'm telling a psychologist that I know, not that I go to, I go to psychiatrists. No, a psychologist that I met, and I told him over this story. And he tells me, I got to tell you a story. Listen to the story he tells me. He says to me that a few years ago, he was walking in the street, and he brushes with a certain boy, an 18-year-old boy, 19-year-old boy that was walking with a hoodie. And he crossed paths with this boy, and he almost like the boy didn't see him, and I guess he didn't notice, and they bumped it a little bit into each other. So when he saw this, he looked at the boy, and he said hello to him, and he apologized to him, and then he recognized him. He says, oh, I know your father, and he started talking with him. What are you doing these days? I'm not doing anything much. And he was just very friendly to him, and then he went on his way, A few weeks later, this psychologist gets an email from this boy. I guess he's a famous psychologist. He got his email, And he says to him, I want you to know, unbelievable story, I want you to know that that day you bumped into me, I was thinking of committing suicide. That's what he says to him. I was thinking of committing suicide. I was down in the dumps. I felt terrible about life. I had no reason to live, and I didn't tell my parents anything. And I was thinking of ways to kill myself. Chas v'shalom. That's what he said. But when you bumped into me, and you were warm to me, and you said hello to me, and you were nice to me, I started to feel a little different. I started to feel a little bit better. That night I went home and I told my parents, and right now I'm in rehab and I'm getting the help I need, but it's all because you took the time to say hello and to ask how I was doing. So you never know. This guy told me the story on this past Sunday. You never know when you simply think that you're saying hello to somebody, who cares? You never know how bad the guy's feeling that day. You don't know what he's going through in life. We can't even understand what it means when a person has difficulties, and all maybe that's needed is for a person to smile, to say hello, to show that you care, to show warmth. So this is what the psychologist told me. His story is probably greater than the story I'm about to tell you, but I just want to mention the story I saw in the book. So again, what does it mean, a small gesture that we can't even understand what it does for a human being? So in the book, he says over the story, Rabbi Muller says over this story, he says there was a bacher that was 17 years old that was learning in Ponevezh. He was there for 4 years. When he turned 21 and a half, he got engaged and he's about to get married. So he goes over to one of the rabbeim in the yeshiva that he had nothing to do with, and he gives him a wedding invitation. And he says, it would mean a lot to me if you can come to my wedding. It would mean a lot to me if you could come to my wedding. It would mean a lot. Okay. So the Rebbe looks at this bacher and says, I really appreciate you inviting me. I really appreciate you inviting me. But I don't understand why you're inviting me. I'll be honest with you. I never said one word to you in the 4 years we were here. You're not in my shiur. I'm honored, but I had nothing to do with you. I feel terrible, but I had really nothing to do with you. I feel honored that you're inviting me. So the boy looks at this Rebbe and says, no, you don't understand. You are the reason why I stayed in yeshiva, and I'll tell you how. And you are the reason that I became a Ben Torah, that I am today. Whatever Ben Torah I am today, you are the reason. He goes, I don't know, tell me. He says, I want you to know 4.5 years ago, 4 years ago, when I came to Ponevezh, I came into the middle of a Zman, in the middle of a semester. And I wasn't interested in learning that much. I knew how to learn, so I got in. I wasn't interested. Also, I couldn't get too many friends. I wasn't friendly enough. I wasn't social. And I had a very difficult few months that I was there. And I made up my mind, I'm not going back after Pesach. I made up my mind that I'm leaving yeshiva at Ponevezh, and I am not coming back. The Shabbat, before we were off for Bein Hazmanim on Pesach, before Rosh Chodesh, when everybody's off, the week before, the Shabbat before, we all lined up to wish Good Shabbos, like every Friday night. Like everyone goes to the Rav to wish Good Shabbos. In all yeshivot, usually out of town, the Rebbeim line up, and you go and you pass by and you say Good Shabbos to every Rebbe. So when I passed you, I had nothing to do with you. I wasn't in your shir even. You looked at me and you said to me, can I speak to you for a minute outside? So I said, okay, sure. So you took me, this boy tells the Rebbe, you took me to a back room and you said to me, I need to help you with something. And my tie was on my collar. So you went and you fixed my collar and you did my tie and you fixed it nicely. And then you said, now, you go back in. And I said to myself, wow, I have nothing to do with this Rebbe, but look how much he cared for me. Look how much he went out of the line as everybody was walking. Just that I shouldn't be embarrassed a little bit by my tie, and that I should look menschlich, I should look nice. So I made up my mind that I'm going to come back after Pesach for at least another month or two, and I stayed for the next 4 years. So because of you, I stayed in this yeshiva. So you think a small gesture, nothing, right? Who cares? What did he do? He fixed the boy's tie. But look at the impact of fixing a boy's tie left an imprint on this individual, on this Talmud. So you never know, you never ever know what you do, what you think is small. I want to tell you, when I drive through Forest Hills to get to Bet Gavriel, when I give classes, I a lot of times pass Bukharian kids, public school kids without kippot, and they're on their bike, they're on their scooter, they're walking. And I'm in a rush sometimes, and I say, Avrohom, forget it, don't even stop. I don't know who he is, just go. And I said, no, how do you know what impact you could leave on a Talmid? You know what, today at 5:10, I go to Sushi Fusion, I'm meeting some of my Talmidim at Sushi Fusion, and all of a sudden a boy passes on a bike. And I'm about to go into my car, and I said to myself, you know what, stop, and you know what you do? Say hello to the boy, So I quickly called to the boy. I said, hey, you on the bike. I didn't know his name. I said, can I ask you something? He turns around. He goes, yeah. I go, you know we give classes every Tuesday and Thursday. He goes, no, I don't know. I said, what grade are you in? 8th grade. You go to public school? Yes. I said, have you ever heard of Chazaq or J-Wave? He actually did not, which is interesting because almost everybody has. I said, he goes, no. I said, maybe come to the classes. He goes, yeah, I'll start coming Thursday. This coming Thursday, he's going to come. I could easily have gone into my car, ignored the kid, and I'm busy. I have no time for him, right? But you never know. This kid starts coming to class, and you save his neshama, and then he maybe goes to yeshiva, or he doesn't go to yeshiva, and he becomes religious and marries, all because I wasn't lazy, and I'm not a good guy. That's not what this is about. Because I wasn't lazy, and I stopped to say, hey, how are you? Can I say something to you? So let me get back. When I drive around, I sometimes, in a rush, I want to get home from something, and I see public school kids walking. I will move my car to a spot a little ahead, and I'll stop my car, I'll open the window, I'll say, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? Maybe you should, how about a kippah, tzitzit, I'll buy it for you. And I strike up a conversation. And I want to tell you, I'm not going to be selfish here. It's a great feeling too. It's a great feeling that you made a difference in someone's life. That you made a difference in someone's life is an unbelievable thing. Now I'm going to tell you a story that Elyakim, my brother, told me over in the name of my great-grandfather, Rav Moshe Landinsky, who actually said this story over to my grandfather, Rav Shmuel David. Rav Shmuel David said this story over, I don't know how, but my brother, Reb Aaron Zatzal, always mentions this story. Always mentions, at least 2-3 times a year in his shiurim, he mentions this story. I only heard it for the first time this morning. I was speaking to Elyakim. I said, give me a good, last night, I said, give me a good story. So he tells me an unbelievable story about a small gesture. I told him the story about the psychologist. I told him the story with the student, with the Panavisha student. So he tells me, let me tell you a story that Aaron always repeats over in the name of my grandfather, Rav Shmuel David. He says over a story like this. When the Chafetz Chaim was nifter, they decided they're going to raise money. I don't know if you know the story or not. They're going to raise money for a Sefer Torah in the name of the Chafetz Chaim. So they went to Reb Chaim Oizer and they said, should we take on raising whatever the amounts of money to make a Sefer Torah in the name of the Chafetz Chaim? That's what the question was. So I asked my brothers, what was the shiloh? Why not? Maybe we can use the money for other things. Poor people, I don't know. Should the money be used? They wanted a bracha from Reb Chaim Oizer. So Reb Chaim Oizer said 100% we should make a Sefer Torah in the name of the Chafetz Chaim. That's what he says over. It came out that they needed to raise X amounts of money and they wanted it from a certain place. The bottom line is they were having a difficulty. I don't know why, but they were having a little bit of a difficulty raising all the funds they needed. I don't know what that means exactly. So my grandfather told someone, I forgot who it was, that you should go to a certain maskil. So my great-grandfather also said, I don't know, what are we going to do? So my grandfather told his father-in-law, Rav Moshe Landinsky, he said to him, he says, let me tell you about a certain maskil, a certain, not apikoiris, but a maskil, a Jew that went off and that enlightens the community against Torah. It's called a maskil. And in the times in Germany, in the 1920s and 30s, it was a big problem, the Haskalah movement. So my grandfather, Rav Shmuel David, told Rav Moshe Landinsky to tell certain people to go to this maskil, So they asked, should we go to this maskil or not? Why should we go to him? So my grandfather said over, let me tell you why you should go to him. Because this maskil told me that he's very fond of the Chafetz Chaim. That this maskil told my grandfather must have 20-something years old, 25 years old, told him that he's very fond of the Chafetz Chaim. Why? So he says over, the maskil says over a story like this. He says, when I was in the yeshiva in Radin by the Chafetz Chaim, I started to go off the derech, and I started to preach Haskalah. I started to preach the Haskalah movement. So when Rav Moshe Lindinsky, the Rosh Yeshiva, when they found out, they said, he has to be thrown out of yeshiva. He's a danger to the other Bachrim. So they went to the Chafetz Chaim, and the Chafetz Chaim paskin, yes, he must leave the yeshiva immediately. So they went, he's affecting many other Bachrim with his apikursis and his problems. So they told the Bachar he has to leave. He was masking, but he said, my next train that could take me to my house, to where I live, is only 3-4 days from now. I don't know what to do. So the Chafetz Chaim says, you'll stay by my house. You'll stay by my house. Stay by my house. I'll take care of you for the 3-4 days, but you can't be allowed in the yeshiva because it's not fair to the other Bachrim. So he says over the first night that I was sleeping there, I was up, I was reading literature, whatever I was reading over there, and it was a cold, wintry night, and the blanket I had went over my feet. I was sleeping, and it was only covered half my body. It just wasn't covering my feet. Not that it wasn't enough. The Chafetz Chaim opened the door, and he sees me. So I made believe that I was sleeping. I didn't want him to see what I was reading. So I opened the door, the Chafetz Chaim opened the door, and he walked in. And he went over to me, and he took the blanket, and he covered my feet, and he made sure that my feet were under the blanket, that I should be warm. Because of that, he says, I will always be grateful to the Chafetz Chaim. And he said, the small gesture, and he gave all the money that was needed for the Sefer Torah. He gave all the money. Now, a small gesture, the Chafetz Chaim, he did what he had to do, but a human being is still a human being. He still needs to be warm. He still needs to be taken care of. So you see another story of what it means, a small gesture of sensitivity, what it can do to a human being. I don't know if this guy ever became religious. I don't know the story of this guy, but this is a story that my brother always says over from his grandfather, Shmuel David, my father's father, and from the great-grandfather of Moshe Lindinsky, how the Chafetz Chaim was so careful that even though this boy deserved to be thrown out, the Chafetz Chaim took him into his home. And even though he doesn't deserve to be warm, no, the Chafetz Chaim made sure that this boy had a certain amount of warmth, and he took that personal care. And I'm going to end with one story now, an unbelievable story with the Kloisenberger Rebbe. The Kloisenberger Rebbe lost, I don't even know how many children, I think 10 or 11 in the Holocaust. Well, how many? 11. Thank you. He lost 11 children and a wife in the Holocaust. 11 children and a wife in the Holocaust. And he was known that he would be the one always giving chizuk to all the Jews in the concentration camps, after the concentration camps. He created a dynasty. One individual, the Kloisenberger Rebbe, created a dynasty in Kiryat Sanz, in Eretz Yisrael, all over the place. And he was known for his greatness in Torah and Midot, the Kloisenberger Rebbe. One day, the Kloisenberger Rebbe was Zocha to go to Eretz Yisrael. The first time he got there, I think it was 1963, I think it was. He came to Eretz Yisrael, and when he came to the Kotel, but when he came to the Mokim HaMikdash, and he davened Shachris there, because I don't think they had the wall then yet. Maybe it was in 67, Taka. Maybe it was after they got the wall. I'm not sure. But anyway, when he got to the Mokum HaMikdash, whatever it was, he saw it from afar. By Shachrit, he cried for an hour as he said the words, Ezehu Mikamon Shel Zvachim. Where is the place of Zvachim? Where is the Ezu Mikamon? Where is the place of Karbanot that we used to sacrifice, that we can't even sacrifice anymore? So it was a very emotional trip for the Kloisenberger Rebbe when he came for the first time to Eretz Yisrael, and he built a dynasty over there. Kiryat Sanz, famous, the hospitals and the chesed and everything that they do over there. Anyway, he went on a trip to Tzfas. He took a trip to Tzfas. In those days, traveling wasn't like today. You have air conditioning in the buses, or whatever it was. It was a long trip. It took 4 or 5 hours, I think, each way. He gets to Tzfas, he goes to different kfarim, he went to Shema Yochai, Meron, he went to different places in the area. But he stopped off to daven mincha by the cave of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai. That's where he davened mincha. He had a minyan over there, he had 10 people, and he davened mincha. Chassidim went with him. He davened mincha, but he was a Chassidisha, and Kloisenberg was known that they davened mincha, like many Chassidim, way after Shkia. He davened mincha way after a certain Zman. I think it was actually before Shkia, but it was a later Zman. And he davened mincha there. He davened with kavana and everything. Finally, he gets back into the car on the way back to Yerushalayim. He's meeting with tons of people, and he starts to shake, and he starts to get very panicky. And they want to give him to drink. He goes, I don't want to drink anything. I can't eat or drink. And the whole way back, he was saying Tehillim. He was crying, saying Tehillim. They couldn't understand what was bothering him. He's on his way back. That night he told his Talmidim, his Hasidim, that I can't meet with anyone. Please look at the list of who's meeting with me and ask them if they can please come tomorrow if it's possible. And of course they said, he's not feeling well, he couldn't. The next day, he still was fasting. He didn't eat, he was fasting. Nobody knew why. No one knew why. At around 10 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock, he davened Shachris much earlier than normal. At 9 o'clock, I think it was maybe 9 o'clock in the morning, he tells a bunch of his Talmidim, we need to go back to Tzfas, we need to go back to Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi's kever. We have to go back there immediately. So no one's asked. So they took 2 buses, 2 minivans, minibuses, whatever they had, and they took 10, 15 people, and they went back. He still didn't eat, he still didn't drink yet from the night before. And they go to Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi's kever. They get there by around 1 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock, I don't know, something like that. And he says, we must daven mincha again for today. We daven mincha early. Okay. They daven mincha. He davens for 45 minutes, Shemoneh Esrei mincha. And then afterwards, he cries at the kever, and he says, now you can give me something to eat and drink. And he gets back into the van. Now we can go back to Yerushalayim. What happened here? What happened here? So he tells them, I want you to know that after I daven mincha, I realized that I daven mincha at a Tana's kever, at a zman that he holds, you're not allowed to daven mincha, plas plag ha-mincha. How did he have the chutzpah to daven mincha at the kever of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi at a zman that he holds that you can't daven mincha anymore? How did he have the insensitivity to daven at a Tana's kever at a zman that he doesn't agree with? Or a person should try to daven earlier. So I couldn't eat and drink, and the whole night I stayed up fasting and saying, davening, that the Tana should forgive him, that he could be insensitive like that. So I went back, he said, early in the morning to go daven mincha at a time that Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi holds you could daven mincha. I needed to do kapara, to go back to the place that I made the mistake and ask mechila and daven at a time that accords with the Tana Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi. That is what sensitivity means. So we're going to end with this tonight, and I want to tell you, very important, what it means to be sensitive to your ruchniot, to your family members, to be caring, to go above lifnim mishur sadin if it has to. Sometimes you think you're right. Sometimes you think you're right. The guy deserves it. My wife deserves it. My husband deserves it. My children deserve it. This guy deserves it. You know how many phone calls I get from people that deserve everything? You don't even know. I got 3 phone calls on the way here that people complaining that my daughter deserves this and my son deserves that. He got a ticket. Should I take away his car? And I'm telling you, you know what? Stop worrying about what people deserve. Worry about what I think. When maybe we have to be better parents. Maybe we have to be more sensitive people. Maybe we have to be a little more caring. And you'll see people turn around. When you show a smile to somebody, when you come home from work and instead of being miserable, you had a long day, is my supper ready? Is my slippers ready? Is the hot water ready? How about just take a chill, relax, and be more sensitive, and you'll see the same people that you feel are insensitive will start being a little more sensitive to you. So I thank you all for coming. I give you all a bracha. It's an honor to be here in my father's Bet Midrash with people that I met, I know for 30 years already. 30 years I know some of you. I know some of you even before the people that moved to Arizona, the Maximovs, I remember them. But all of you, I give you a bracha that we should be mekabel the Torah ba'ahava and yira, and we should be zocha to actually be in Yerushalayim this coming year, and we should be mekabel the Torah and have the Bet HaMikdash. Thank you all for coming.